Hey everybody, Questwise here. We're back again today. Still here. If you watched the previous video, I'm here at the the Traverse City State Hospital grounds. This is an old asylum that has been turned into a historical landmark. There are tons of hiking trails. I'm just off the beaten path here, up into the trees, trying to get a little bit of shade so the sun doesn't blind you in this video. But what you can't see is that just off to my right here are the buildings of the old state hospital. It's a beautiful, beautiful place, and a beautiful place to visit and to check out if you're ever in the Grand Traverse area of northern Michigan. Today, I want to expand upon the wisdom of the quest. This is our, I guess it'll be our third in the series, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about engaging players at a table. And again, this is purely an opinion piece. This whole series is really just how I've learned to do things and how I do things at my table. And if they don't work for you, they don't work for you. There's a billion different ways to play role-playing games, and I don't claim to know all of them. I don't claim to be able to create all those different instances. But there's a particular way that I like to try to do things, and I try to be as flexible as possible when it comes to playing role-playing games. I spend a lot of time reading and researching and watching YouTube videos and exploring different ways of running games and stuff, that I feel like I'm flexible enough that I can try to at least appeal to as many people as I can at my table. Today, what I want to talk about is being at a table, a physical table, surrounded by people when running a game, and how to engage those players, or how to know those players are actually engaged in the story itself. First of all, there's nothing against online gaming. I enjoy online gaming. I've done a lot of it. I'm engaging in a lot of it right now. In fact, on June 29th, I'll be running Forbidden Lands for Victory Condition Gaming, so please check that out if you want as well too. But my true love is actually sitting at a physical table with books and dice in front of me and surrounded by a group of players. And the reason I say that is because I feel like there's a lot of opportunities there that you kind of miss while you're playing online. And one of those things is whether or not players are engaged in the narrative, and how to tell whether or not they are having a good time or they're engaged with the story you're telling. Over the years, I've learned a couple of things, and it's really about body language and of the players, and how to sort of engage with them and understand their body language, and knowing that they are really having a good time, and they're enjoying the story at hand. One of those things is, if they're paying attention, you can tell, you can sort of gauge the sort of excitement level at a table, or the interest level at a table. If they're ignoring their phone that's going off, that's buzzing on the table next to them. If they're actively engaged in looking at you, watching you, listening to you tell the story. If they're taking notes, that's another big one as well too. One of the big things for me is when people actually lean forward. You can tell, you can feel that the excitement level when there's something that's coming up that they're really excited about. And so if they're sort of sitting back in their seats and this really tense moment starts to happen, and they begin to lean forward and watch you as you're explaining and describing this action that's happening, you can tell that they're actually interested, that they're really having a good time. Things to watch out for are things where people look bored, if they get up and leave the table, if they're leafing through the book haphazardly, and you can tell that they're not actually looking for a spell or some certain particular rule. You can kind of feel those things, and you kind of want to engage in those people with those kind of things. One of my favorite things to do is that if people look bored, and I'm expounding upon like descriptions of stuff, and it just doesn't seem like, sorry about the helicopter noise in the background, that if they seem to be sort of losing interest in the story at hand that you're trying to tell, one of the age-old ways to counteract that is somebody kicks in the door and a fight begins to break out, right? Something exciting happens. Something out of the ordinary happens that draws them back into the engagement, that draws them back to the attention at the table, right? You want to kind of keep those engaged. And whether or not it's a part of your story or not, you have to be very flexible with those kinds of things. The way that I run games, the way that I design scenarios is that when I sit down for a session 0, and we're creating characters, I'm taking notes, right? And I want to make sure I know as much as I can about each one of their characters, their quirks, their flaws, their perks, the things that they like to do, their engagements with other players, their engagement between characters and such. I try to take notes on all of that kind of stuff. And then when I'm ready for session number 1, what I do is I take those notes and I put them together, and I try to lay out a beginning scenario. How is this adventure going to sort of birth itself? How is it going to launch itself into this sort of campaign or story that we're going to tell at this particular time? And that's really all I do. It's a short outline of, here's my beginning points, here's how my characters are engaged into that thing, and here are some ideas, some story hooks that will sort of maybe draw those characters into the story that we want to tell together. I'll have several different story hooks, so in case they don't want to follow one lead, they can always take another. And once that's underway, I let the characters sort of build the story as they go. As they begin to engage with certain things, I try to be as flexible and try to improv as much as I can. Now, I will have a lot of NPCs that I want to introduce into the story, but I don't really tie them to a specific situation or a specific location or whatever, so that I can be as flexible with them as possible. And if the characters, the players themselves, decide their characters want to go in a different direction, I can always plug those NPCs in later. But I want the players to always be engaged. I want them to always be interested in the story, and I want them to feel like they're playing a part in the larger world. So by giving them sort of the front row seats of this campaign, of this adventure, of this scenario, I'm able to do those kinds of things. Now, it's a little bit more of a difficult thing. When you're running a scripted adventure, that's a lot more difficult to do, because there's sort of a lot of times, there's a very linear path that the adventure wants you to take. A lot of modern game companies are becoming much better at those kinds of things, designing adventures that are much more sandboxy and a lot more open when it comes to the direction that they go, and that the players have lots of different directions that they can take at the time that they want to go and explore things. But if you're running an adventure that's already scripted out, it's a little bit more difficult to get players to do those certain things that you want them to. Sometimes players will. Sometimes players will totally just jump on board and follow the storyline to see where it goes. But a lot of times they will not. And a lot of times they want to feel empowered, and that they want to engage in the quest the way that they want to do it, and not the way that they feel the game master wants them to. And so I like that agency. I like that ability to let players do the things that they want, and I like them to sort of build the story for me. Again, that becomes very difficult, because you have to be good at being flexible, at being good at improv, being able to sort of on the fly, ad hoc, create things. And that only comes with experience. That only comes with hours and hours and hours of play. While that makes it sound like it's such a daunting task, it's really not, because you're already engaging in a game that you love, a passion that you have, right? So there are many things out there that you can do to try to make this happen, make players engage with those kind of things. There are lots of different sources out there. Kobold Press is a great line. I'll try to link down below to their website. A great line of books on how to game master, how to design adventures, how to create great locales, how to create amazing NPCs and villains, those kinds of things. Things that you can read, ingest, or whatever, and then the knowledge is there, and you just have to pull it out whenever you need it. It's not something that's really scripted out all the time. Experience is another big one. And again, reading people's body language is going to be very important. Getting to know your players. Now, it's a little bit more difficult when you're at a convention game where you've never met these people and you're only going to be with them for maybe 1 or 2 sessions. But I think with over time, with experience, you're able to sort of learn sort of human nature, and you're able to sort of be flexible with people and the weird things that they're going to do, because players will always have weird things that they want to engage in. That will throw you for a loop. And those are the things you just need to be flexible with, and things that you need to sort of like roll with the punches, as it were. I hope that some of this stuff makes sense to you. I hope that some of this is helpful to you. If you have any questions, I had a lot of great questions on the first episode. I'm going to try to get to those as soon as possible. But if you have any questions, if you have any comments, leave them down below. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to engage in this conversation, and I'd love to talk to you about the things that I do. And if you're watching my channel, you subscribe to my channel, I'm assuming that you're enjoying the things that I'm talking about, the way that I like to role play, try to find new ways to sort of engage with players and engage in the hobby itself. So please be a part of this community, log down and below and stuff, and let me know what you think. But until next time, I'm going to go enjoy the rest of this day. But I'm Questwise, and I'm out.